You know, in today's digital world, your customers are constantly telling you what they want, often without saying a single word. The real question is, how well are you listening? We're about to dig into a strategic report from the Colorado-based research firm Virtualization Options LLC, and it breaks down one of the most powerful and, let's be honest, controversial tools in business today: web tracking and digital fingerprinting. We're not just going to look at what it is, but what it really means for your bottom line and for your brand.
So let's start with a really provocative thought. What if every single visitor to your website left behind a detailed dossier, even if they never logged in? A profile that could follow them from your site to your competitors and pretty much everywhere else they go online. This isn't science fiction, folks. This is the reality of web tracking right now. And for any business leader, getting your head around this isn't optional anymore. So what is this stuff exactly? Well, it's called browser fingerprinting. And it's a whole different ballgame from the tracking methods you might be used to. See, instead of leaving a little file on someone's computer, it just observes them. It analyzes dozens of settings that are unique to their device, like their operating system, the specific fonts they have installed, their screen size, even tiny differences in their graphics card. And it uses all that to build a digital ID that is, statistically speaking, one of a kind, a fingerprint. Okay, but why? Why go to all this trouble? Well, because knowing your customer on this deeper level is incredibly valuable. And that really gets to the heart of it, the commercial drivers behind all this tracking, what we might call the business of knowing you. The motivation here is pretty clear, and it really breaks down into three key areas. Now, half of it, no surprise, is for targeted advertising, getting the right ad in front of the right person. But look at this other 30%. That's for product development. Companies are using this data to see exactly where you hesitate on their website, what features you skip over, and which ones you actually use, all to build better products. And that last slice? That's all about market research, giving businesses a live map of consumer behavior and a huge competitive edge. So how is this so different from what we've been using for years? To really get why it's so powerful, we've got to compare the method everyone knows, cookies, with these newer, much more sophisticated digital fingerprints. Here's probably the best way to think about it. A cookie? That's like a loyalty card for a store. It's helpful for that one store, but you can easily leave it at home or just toss it out. A digital fingerprint, on the other hand, that's more like a detective's profile. It's built from your unique characteristics, it follows you everywhere, and you can't just clear your cache to get rid of it. And that persistence is what makes it so incredibly powerful and so controversial. So how is one of these profiles actually put together? It all happens in a flash, in just a few key steps. First, a script looks at your basic browser info. Then it goes deeper, testing your hardware, like the tiny differences in how your specific graphics card draws an image. Then all these little data points, dozens of them, are combined to create a statistically unique ID. And here's the absolute key takeaway. This ID is created from your device itself, not from something stored on it. Now, with this kind of power, you know there's a catch, right? This isn't just a technical issue anymore. For a business leader, it's a full-blown privacy minefield. It's packed with legal, reputational, and, ethical risks. Here's the core problem in a nutshell. We're talking about tracking that is persistent, often not transparent at all, and that builds these incredibly detailed user profiles, usually without the person's full knowledge or any meaningful consent. And that practice can destroy the single most important currency you have with your customers, their trust. In response, governments are, of course, stepping in. And two big laws really set the stage. Over in Europe, you've got GDPR, which is all about strengthening individual data rights. It requires your explicit consent. Here in the US, California's CCPA is more focused on giving consumers control, the right to see what you've collected and to tell you to stop selling it. These are just two examples, but they point to a very clear global trend. And this is a really critical insight from the Virtualization Options report, don't make the mistake of thinking legal compliance is the same as risk management. The reality is, technology is evolving way faster than the law, and that creates loopholes. Relying only on the law to guide your strategy is like trying to navigate a minefield with a map that's 5 years out of date. So what's the path forward? It's not just about dodging risks. The smartest companies out there are actually learning how to lead with transparency, and they're turning it into a real competitive advantage. First off, you have to recognize that your customers are not passive anymore. They are actively arming themselves with privacy-focused browsers, tracker blocking extensions, VPNs, the works. And this isn't some niche group of techies. This is becoming mainstream. As your customers get more savvy, your strategy has to respect that. If you ignore this shift, you're basically ignoring your customers.
So this really elevates the conversation, doesn't it? It's no longer a technical question you can just punt to your IT department. It's a strategic question for the C-suite. What is the right business strategy for a world that is clearly demanding privacy first? And the answer really lies in finding a strategic balance. On one side, you have your legitimate business needs. You need data for personalization, for product development, for market insights. But on the other side, you have fundamental consumer rights, the right to privacy, the right to transparency, the right to feel secure. The companies that win in the future will be the ones that master this balancing act today and start treating privacy not as a chore, but as a core part of their brand promise. So where is all of this heading? And maybe more importantly, what is your role in shaping a more ethical future for the web? You can see the evolution pretty clearly. We've moved from that early era of simple cookies into our current reality of advanced fingerprinting and a whole lot of regulation. But the future seems to be pointing toward two big ideas. Privacy by design, where privacy isn't a bolt-on, it's a core feature from the start, and decentralized identity, which is a world where users actually own and control their own data, and they grant access to companies on their terms. At the end of the day, as that Virtualization Options report makes so clear, all of this, the technology, the laws, the strategies, it all boils down to one simple concept. In this digital age, consumer trust isn't just an asset, it is the ultimate asset. So the final question isn't really about technology, it's about leadership. How are you protecting yours?